What's going on, summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides Wild Rift video. I'm Kangas, and today I'm discussing one tip for every single champion. But before we get into that fun, we got our question of the day. What champion guide do you want us to do next? I've gotten a lot of DMs about this, so I'm curious what everybody wants. I hit that sub button, and let's hop right into it.
Moving in alphabetical order, we got Ahri up first. Unless you're super confident with her charm, try not using the ability first. Instead, wait for your team to throw out crowd control themselves and then follow up, or create your own opportunity by catching an opponent off guard by bush cheesing. Akali. Akali is technically a melee champion, but relies heavily on kiting, so practice keeping your distance from the enemy and dancing around them. Alistar. Make sure to practice your flash combos in the practice tool. One particular combo that is sure to impress is pressing flash right when you use pulverize. This can be absolutely insane in games and is sure to level up your Alistar plays. Amumu. Always ward your jungle early on as Amumu. Enemy junglers love counter ganking the sad mummy, so to avoid crying, make sure that you're prepared. Annie. If you play Annie support, although we don't particularly recommend doing so, Molten Shield can actually be used on your ally to absorb some damage. Be sure to do this so that your AD carry is less tilted over having you play Annie support. Ashe. When using your Hawkshot to grant vision of a key objective, use it preemptively rather than late. An earlier use allows faster follow-up from your team, especially when you spam pings. Aurelion Sol. Try ganking lanes in different angles rather than just going directly down from the river. That specific path is almost always warded, so try ganking from lane instead, since that one is sure to catch your enemies off guard. Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank's ultimate can be used to interrupt other channeling ultimates, such as Misfortune and Katarina, so don't just spam the ability for damage, rather hold it for key moments to better impact teamfights. Braum. Braum's shield is fantastic for blocking damage, but rather than just standing in front of your AD carry to protect them, you can actually shove the shield in front of the enemy AD carry to make them essentially useless. This will open up way more aggressive options for your team. Camille. She is actually very strong right now, and people have been trying her out in the jungle since her map rotational speed is phenomenal. We actually recommend that you try the same, but of course in normal games first to practice and better understand her pathing and overall mechanics. Corki. Do not just haphazardly use your package. The ability can drastically change the tides of a fight for an objective since it completely splits the enemy team while positioning Corki offensively. Darius. Darius's ultimate actually jumps him forward a significant distance, so be sure to calculate the dash when you're looking to dunk down the enemy team. Diana. Keep an eye on every unit you inflict Moonlight on and how long it's been stacked. Every stack of Moonlight serves a purpose during intense teamfights and can very much make the difference between dying after engaging or managing a slippery escape. Dr. Mundo. Mundo is very tanky, but does rely heavily on regeneration to stay alive. Be aware of champions with innate bleed damage such as Darius when initiating a fight and just do your best to avoid them. Draven. Draven's third ability, Stand Aside, is actually incredibly beneficial in both aggressive and defensive plays. The ability knocks back all targets it hits and slows them, preventing them from escaping and reacting to his damage. But it does have a long cooldown, so be careful when you actually use the ability. Evelynn. Evelyn's ultimate quickly places her a pretty decent distance away from the targeted area, and can actually be used to hop over every terrain in the game. Ezreal. Be careful of how you use Arcane Shift. Using Arcane Shift forward can easily result in your death, so only do so when you're guaranteed to be safe and the damage is sure to hit. Fiora. Fiora's vital spots are actually randomly generated, so if you don't like the vital spot shown on your lane opponent, just walk away for a bit and then walk back up and you'll probably see a new vital. Fizz. Contrary to popular belief, Trickster is not actually Fizz's only escape. Study the range of Fizz's Urchin Strike since the ability's dash range extends past the target, allowing it to serve as both a gap closer and also a very effective escape. Galio. Justice Punch actually goes through crowd control when properly timed, so utilize the skill when you know the enemy team is about to lock you down. Garen. If you ever find yourself needing to sustain on Garen, just avoid taking damage for a couple of seconds to proc his very useful passive. This can really help you stay in lane longer when you really need that extra minion wave. Gragas. Go into the practice tool and practice preemptively placing your barrel roll before throwing out your ultimate explosive cast. The goal here is to have the practice dummy land right on your barrel roll. This combo is really difficult to pull off, but incredibly rewarding, especially if you can pull it off in a game. Graves. Don't just randomly throw out Graves' smokescreen. The ability is one of Graves' biggest assets since it blinds the enemies, thereby confusing them and diminishing opportunities to react. Janna. Janna can be useful by simply standing near her allies since her passive grants additional movement speed when her team runs towards her, so it's key to think a step or two ahead and position preemptively to lead the team in and out of fights. Jarvan IV. Now this is a tip that we've given out before, but for those that don't know, you can actually use Jarvan's knockup combo by simply pressing his third ability twice, instead of trying to aim the first ability towards the flag. Doing so will allow Jarvan to auto-aim towards his flag, expediting the combo significantly. Oh, and since he's really good right now, if you want to pick a counter to Jarvan, be sure to check out our Counter the Meta video where we discuss exactly that. Jax. Jax can leap strike to allies as well, so if you're ever playing with a Jax or playing Jax yourself, try to stand nearby for an emergency escape route. Jhin. There's a lot you can do with Jhin's fourth shot. By simply holding onto the shot, you can actually zone off enemies and just apply pressure with that alone. In addition, try to save your first ability to combo immediately after your fourth shot. This deals a large amount of burst damage, surprising your enemies since they don't really expect damage during reload animations. Jinx. When playing Jinx, get into the habit of switching your guns frequently. After all, this is one of Jinx's main mechanics, and the more you grow accustomed to the strengths and weaknesses of each gun, the more versatile of a player you will become. Kai'Sa. You almost always want to go for your Acathian Rain upgrade first, since the ability offers an absurd amount of damage. Supercharge upgrade is also really good, but the damage on Acathian Rain is just too huge and pinnacle in Kai'Sa's kit to delay. Katarina. Katarina can actually jump over small walls by utilizing preparation to place a dagger right next to the terrain. Press jumpo on the drop dagger, but position over the wall instead of just right on top. This should allow you to appear on the other side of the wall. Kennen. The key to maximizing the Kennen pick is to grow accustomed to achieving his stun. So practice using your skills immediately after one another for those quick bursts in order to acquire the 3 stacks necessary for that stun. Kha'Zix. Evolving your jump allows you to reset the ability after acquiring a takedown, kind of letting you jump around like Tristana. Lee Sin. If you press your R in front of the enemy and flash immediately after, the ultimate input will actually calculate the trajectory based on the position post-flash, rather than prior. Utilize this to surprise enemies and pull off some seriously fancy plays. Leona. Space out your crowd control abilities, rather than spamming them all at once so that you maximize the duration of the crowd control. You don't want to be stunning an already stunned target, but instead stun the target right as they recover from your previous crowd control. And chances are, if your team composition is any decent, your initial crowd control will be followed up by somebody else's ability, so don't just spam rush all of your abilities. Lulu. Try to use Wild Growth, Lulu's ultimate ability, in conjunction with other crowd control effects from your team, rather than just using it purely for the defensive stats. For example, if the allied Wukong hits a 5-man knockup ultimate, ult the Monkey Man for an additional knockup to absolutely destroy the enemy team. This will create some devastating wombo combos. Lux. As Lux, bushes are your best friend. Utilize the Fog of War to hit some nasty snares that alarm the enemy, creating your own windows to snowball the game. Malphite. The strongest asset to the Malphite pick is his ultimate, since it can very much change the tides of a game with a single usage. So be sure to study the enemy's movement, utilizing the Fog of War to mask your observations to find the perfect opportunity for your engage. Master Yi. Unlike what most low elo players believe, Alpha Strike is not the only essential mechanic when playing Master Yi. Attack animation canceling is the key to mastering the pick. Even your meditation provides an animation cancel, so time your abilities well to maximize your damage output. Misfortune. When clearing a minion wave, always try to change your auto attack target, since her passive grants additional damage when she basic attacks a new target. Doing so will maximize your damage and bring minions low enough to shoot double tap through. Nami. Every single one of Nami's abilities grants allies movement speed when casting on them. And yes, this includes her bubble and her wave. Nasus. If you ever find yourself fighting against Renekton 1v1, make sure that you win. The two champions actually have a unique nemesis duel, and winning against Renekton allows Nasus' siphoning strike to hit multiple targets. Olaf. Land your axes and then be sure to pick them up after. If you don't land them, you can't chase, and if you don't pick them up, you can't throw that many more of them to continue the chase. Orianna. Placing your ball on an invisible ally allows you to throw out a near undodgeable shockwave, creating an abysmal playing condition for your enemies. Particularly, this combo is effective with Wukong since the monkey loves to engage. Pantheon. Pantheon's ultimate actually deals damage, so be sure to position the area of effect to clear waves that you may otherwise miss. Rakan. Rakan's ultimate, the quickness, has no limit to the amount of champions he charms, so try to hit as many enemies as possible during the duration. You can also still use your other skills, including Flash, during this duration, so use the abilities that grant you mobility to maximize the amount of targets hit. Rammus. Rammus' ultimate can be used to hop over walls, which can actually be incredibly useful for ganking unsuspecting enemies. Follow the ultimate with a taunt, and the target enemy is not going anywhere. Renekton. Keep a keen eye on your rage. Empowered abilities all grant unique advantages, and you'll more likely than not want to wait on a full bar before committing to a full-on engage. Rengar. Bushes are truly Rengar's best friend. When fighting an enemy, be sure to use every bush that you can. This grants him a gap closer that can essentially be spammed on repeat, a rather strong advantage during trades. Seraphine. Seraphine's ultimate extends longer the more targets it hits, enemies and allies alike. That's why you might sometimes see a Seraphine ultimate extending way longer than you expected. It's not a glitch, that's legitimately how they intended it to work. Shyvana. One of Shyvana's biggest priorities is farming, since she's pretty weak before learning her ultimate and acquiring some core items. That doesn't mean don't gank, but simply do your best to secure jungle camps during the early stages of the game. Singed. When playing Singed, be super aware of your pathing, since the biggest chunk of your damage comes from the poison trail that you leave behind. Think to yourself, which path is safest for me to take, but would still bait my enemies into trying to catch me out? Sona. Sona can influence the way her allies move by using her passive auras. Oftentimes, your teammates can feel the effects of your buffs, and therefore they want to be near you to receive the full benefits. This makes Sona a great champion to subliminally influence your allies' positioning and maximize team play. Soraka. Save your ultimate ability for when your teammates are extremely low. Doing so will absolutely mess with your enemy's head, since they would have expected to kill your teammates, thereby surprising them and creating a bigger opportunity to come back from a fight. Teemo. When your Nexus opens up after an inhibitor tower goes down, be sure to plant as many shrooms as possible in your base. These shrooms will oftentimes be the last line of defense, very realistically saving your Nexus from being overwhelmed with minions. Tristana. Do not jump in unless you know you win the trade. This may seem pretty obvious, but actually requires a lot of insight on your realistic damage potential, while also understanding the strength of the enemies all in. Tryndamere. If you have ultimate and you're about to die, just use it as soon as possible. The worst thing you can do as Tryndamere for your team is to bait them in and then die immediately after. The champion is supposed to survive for an obnoxiously long period of time, and your teammates rely on this fact as well. Twisted Fate. Practice swapping through your cards in the practice tool until you get used to immediately throwing out the card of your choice. During key moments, having this as muscle memory will help you tremendously. Varus. When playing Varus, think of creating a realistic wall of pressure with your abilities. His abilities have crowd control and long range, so spamming them almost always forces the enemy back. But you have to understand where your effective range ends and the danger zone begins. Since Varus has no escape options, standing in a dangerous position will almost always result in death. Vayne. Don't just always auto-attack immediately after tumbling during your ultimate. Attacking will reveal you, leaving you vulnerable to the enemies engaged. Sometimes you just want that invisibility to walk it off, creating further distance from the enemy. Vi. Vi's ultimate assault and battery cannot be interrupted, so use this skill to get to the key targets in a teamfight. Wukong. Though using his invisibility to engage a fight is great, keep in mind that the clone mimics his damage abilities as well. Leaving the clone behind significantly decreases his usefulness in a fight, so try to find other ways to approach rather than just relying on the invisibility. Xayah. Xayah can move and choose the direction of her feathers placed during the ultimate, so be sure to decisively position rather than just panic random inputs. Xin Zhao. When playing Xin Zhao, try to position yourself to maximize the effect of your ultimate. The skill knocks enemies back, which can actually bring them into your team while isolating a single target. Yasuo. Before using your ultimate, try to get an extra hit of Steel Tempest in. Doing so will actually maximize your crowd control capabilities when you land, potentially allowing you to throw out an additional whirlwind. Zed. Hitting your skill shots and balancing your shadows is important on Zed, but so is auto-attacking. Be sure to mix in auto-attacks between your combos to maximize your damage, especially since Zed is an attack damage champ. Ziggs. The key to winning games with Ziggs is to push harder than your lane opponent. Try to get the enemy towers to execution range by utilizing a strong push and take control of the game.
And that will conclude today's video covering one tip for every champion in the game. If you want even more tips for all the champions, we actually did a video about that earlier, so you can check that one out too. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content, and also check out our community Discord through the description down below. You can make friends with players just like yourself. That's it for today, so best of luck on the Rift, everybody. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.